Hi, this is Andy. I have a special offer for loyal listeners of Accelerate. It's a no obligation free trial of my zero time selling interactive online training. Now, I've worked with thousands of sales reps to teach them how to use my zero time selling to boost their productivity and transform the results. And so, if you want to learn the same proven strategies to help you open more doors, have more effective sales conversations with prospects, and close more orders, then my zero time selling interactive training system is a fit for you. It's incredibly simple to start. Just take out your smartphone and text the word trust, that's TRUST, to 96,000. Now, do you have your phone ready? Send a text to 96000. That's a 9 and a 6 followed by three zeros. Now enter the single word message trust and hit send, and you hear right back from me with instructions on how to sign up for your free trial on my zero time selling interactive training. I look forward to seeing you there. It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you. Hello and welcome to the show. I am amped up today to talk with my guest, Nancy Bleeke, author of a great book, Conversations That Sell. She's a coach, a speaker, a consultant, a Wisconsin native. We always like Wisconsin natives, right, Nancy?
We sure do.
We sure do. You know, there's a word that's showing up more and more in writing about sales, and that word is conversation. Maybe the second one is collaboration. We hear both those increasingly. And, you know, the great thing about conversation is it's much more collaborative than saying a sales call or a sales presentation. And things, presentations of pitches, those are all about the sales rep and not about the customer. And conversations are about building that relationship and developing the trust that's essential to winning orders and accelerating your sales. And Nancy's here today to talk to us about sales conversations that sell. So Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
That's my pleasure. So you always enjoy talking to you. As Wisconsin natives, both of us here. You still reside there. I get back occasionally for visits, and it's funny, the last time we were there, I may have told you the story once before. Last time we were there, my wife had never been there, and we visit Madison, which is a gorgeous town where I'm from, and she's a New York City native, and she was just taken by Madison.
Oh.
So, yeah, she got a big Midwestern fan there. So, well, take a minute, introduce yourself, tell people what you do.
I help companies grow, and we do that by making sure we have the right people doing the right things at the right time, and centered around having the three conversations that when they're happening productively within a company grows. And that's the sales conversation that brings in the business, the service conversation that keeps the business and customers happy, and the coaching conversation that keeps all the employees engaged and performing at top level. And I call it the trifecta of conversations that growing companies have in place and doing well.
Okay. So you had to learn this somehow. So how'd you get your start in sales? Where did you start learning all of this?
Well, I started learning all of this really back when I was young and selling door to door potatoes.
Wait, I love this. Potatoes, door to door. That's the first.
So I lived in rural, Wisconsin, and we weren't farmers, but all of our neighbors were. And at the end of the seasons, there were what we called the leftovers in the fields.
Sure.
So I was from a large family, and us kids were always looking for ways to make money because there was this rural country store. And so we realized that in our neighborhood, there were lots of moms at home without vehicles all day, and they liked door-to-door produce sellers. And so we picked up leftover potatoes and cabbage and sold door to door. And and then going forward, school contests and all of that. And then something happened in college. I got turned off of sales.
Because?
Well, a lot of different reasons, but I realized so much of it was from my family saying, you don't go to college and go to sales, anybody, is a salesman. And it was this negative connotation
Right.
about selling.
That's
In
the
fact,
thing. That's the thing you do if you have nothing else to do, right?
exactly. If you're not smart enough and you can't get another job, then you go into sales.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I wouldn't even look at a sales job, and instead, I went into personnel, which is now HR. And you talk about a sales job. Oh my goodness, you're selling the company to hire people, you're selling policies, you're selling I mean, it was totally sales. But about 6 or 7 years into my career, I had the opportunity to be mentored by somebody, and even in the HR training field at that time, he got me very interested in selling. And within 2 years, I was, hiring the national sales force, setting compensation, field riding, and then I moved into sales, which nobody could believe I would do. But I was like, this is an awesome career that I have way more control over my compensation than I do doing anything else.
Yes, but you went to the
So
dark side of the force.
did I go to the dark side? And you know what? I've loved it ever since. And with hiring people and managing people in sales, for 19 years now, I've actually then helped other companies to improve their sales performance.
God, so you've
So
been.
I call myself the initial reluctant salesperson, which a lot of people are.
Oh, I think most people are. There are very few people I think that really take to it naturally. I mean, obviously there's some people do, but yeah, most people I know had experiences like mine where my first sales job, I don't know, sitting at a car staring at planes take off and land at a major airport, and about halfway through the day going, why am I doing this? Why am I out there making 20, 30 cold calls on people that don't want to talk to me?
What were you selling?
I sold, my first job, I sold desktop adding machines.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
That's
no, that was
that's a tough job. That's
that
a
was a
tough job.
well, it was a tough job at a time when you could buy a small calculator for about a third, no, not a third, a fifth of the price at your local office supply store. So yeah, it was sort of the dying embers of this company that was a big computer company, Burroughs, that
Mm.
you earned your stripes by selling small little stuff before they trained you to go sell the big stuff. But we were out walking the streets, business parks. I'd go park my car and make dozens of cold calls in a day.
Oh my goodness. Yep.
So yeah, I don't think anybody really, really likes that. And
No. Well, and I think that so many people are discouraged from going into sales, like I was. And just this week, at a meeting that I was holding, I asked people, how many of you chose a career in sales? And 2 out of 30 raised their hands.
yeah,
People usually end up in sales. They don't choose it. And I'm actually working with 2 universities in Wisconsin to try to help change that in the college. And you have so many, I think over 80 universities now have sales programs, and
right.
that's way different. I mean, just in the last 5 years, that's exploded.
Yeah, it's exploded. Yeah, lots of universities out there offering curriculum for people to get a certification or something in sales, which is great because
Yes.
it changes the perspective, I think, of people coming out of school. That it's they can look at it from a positive standpoint as opposed to the court of last resort.
And they can get trained in it to do it well, and then maybe not have those rough couple of years most of us had.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that I guess to me the value of some of the academic programs are they at least expose people to what they're going to be exposed to when they are in sales. But it's like other things, you get kids trained. We got a major in something in school, but when we come out of school, we really don't know anything practical, right?
That's true.
So,
But I think a lot of the universities are trying to change that with internships, at least to give them a little
yes,
bit more of what's the reality. And I know I'm glad I did an internship in college because I changed my career because of it.
yeah, no, my daughter went to Northeastern University, which is famous for their extended internships they do with their undergraduates, and yeah, absolutely, people can do that in sales. It makes a big difference. You really know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So, getting back to your book, Conversations That Sell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a big proponent of this collaborative selling, and it sounds pretty straightforward on one hand, you think, right? But if it were so easy, everyone would be doing it, and you wouldn't be talking about it. So explain what you mean with the collaborative sell, because I think there's more to it than what people think, and really how you start changing a culture to sort of think that way within a sales team.
I do think it sounds easy, but it takes real expertise to be a collaborative salesperson. And the difference, the nuance that I discovered in watching, hundreds and thousands of salespeople over 25 years is that the best salespeople really were engaged with their buyers in a way that was different, and they took consultative selling to a new level. So, when people think of consultative selling, it's really good. And I taught it for years,
Mm-hmm.
that we need to connect with the person, we need to identify their needs, then we need to tell them how we can fix that, and then we need to ask for the decision, but that we lead with questions. Okay, that's, the big thing. But that also, we're the expert. And so, they need us. We need to bring in our expertise to help them. And that through the internet's, overload of information that everyone has now, I think buyers are more discerning now. They know more than buyers did 20 years ago about anything they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And so salespeople still need to be the expert, but they have to use their expertise expertly.
Okay. So
And
go
so
ahead. I'm
what?
sorry.
Well, and what I mean by that is I can't just go in and assume I know a lot more than them. I have to go in and find out what they already know. And I need to not waste their time with what they already know. And I need to be able to, in that moment, adjust and give them what they need, and to then collaborate and work with them to get to how we can help them with whatever their problem, opportunity, want, or need is.
So you talk
And
about
it takes a skill.
it does take a skill, but it takes expertise. You talked about as well. I mean, the expertise is more than questioning expertise, what you might consider the sales skills expertise. But in my mind, for somebody to be truly a consultant, is they need to have expertise in a subject matter as well. And that subject
Mhm.
matter could be, hey, the specific industry that I sell to, that my customers are primarily in, or it could be around the technology, product, service category that I'm selling. But they need to bring something more.
I agree. But they have to not go in as the know it all. You need to know more, but you need to be able to work with that buyer where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
and honor the information, the expertise, the experience they have, the information they have.
Yeah, so I think that maybe one of the things that we don't do when we talk about collaborative selling and consultative selling is take that sort of last logical step to say that, gee, Mr. Sales Rep, given this baseline of knowledge that you have that you can help the prospect with, is think of yourself actually as a consultant. Because then your mindset starts becoming a little bit different, right? Because then a little more, a consultant is much more of a service than selling per se, right? So what's that next logical step you can take to have somebody think about themselves really as a consultant to their prospects?
Well, I mean, I think it's being that consultant that knows their stuff. And the key is being able to right size how you use it in each conversation and opportunity.
Okay.
So to me, that's being a collaborative consultant, because you are an expert, but you don't need to lead with your expertise. Instead, you need to, use it along with what their expertise is. And it's a nuance. It's this little nuance that I observed over and over again. Um, and to equip them to do that, we need to be skilled enough, we need to be knowledgeable enough so that we can flex in each conversation for the back and forth that happens in a conversation, versus going in and being really prepared to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we need to make it interactive.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I see, and another guest I spoke to recently sort of triggered this, well, it did trigger the thought, but made it more clear, and when he and I were discussing this, is that you can't go in with a predetermined outcome in mind.
Mm.
right? If you're a seller, if you're a salesperson, if you're a business owner or a sales leader, and you're hearing this conversation, is key thought for your salespeople is you can't go in with the outcome in mind. I mean, if you're truly being collaborative, then you don't know what and the outcome meaning really the solution for the customer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the outcome I'm getting an order or not, but the outcome in terms of what the best solution is going to be for the customer. If you can't go in with that in mind. You really have to be open, because that's the basis for collaboration. This other guest I spoke with talked about the term, which I think applies really neatly with what you talk about. He talked about co-creation. That's what they talk about is together we're creating the solution.
Right. And it's interesting because I'll do that with buyers, and I'll say, well, let's spec out some of the options on how this would be addressed. I don't go off and create the proposal recommendation and pass it back. It's always a discussion, and I have to be, again, knowledgeable and skilled to be able to know what the potential options are. But when we sit and do that either virtually or literally side by side, the buy-in is so much stronger.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
You scared me at first when you said the outcome, because I believe very much in being prepared for the objective of your meeting,
right.
And knowing where you want to go. But when you say outcome, as far as what is going to be the right solution for that person, company, situation, absolutely. We need to have some things in mind, but we need to be open through what we learn to co-create. I like that term.
Yeah, I'm fortunately that guest is in Europe. I think we're going to start using the term more and more because it's really good in the way it describes the process that you want to try to undertake. So it seems to me that one of the real barriers to this true consultative selling, in the sense that we've been talking about, the collaborative selling with this expertise, is that it seems like there's, just a sort of thin strata of sales reps that can really step up to that bar. And so what do you do to be able to scale this, right? If you're an organization, you're trying to adopt the sales model, which makes huge sense for so many marketplaces. How do you scale that?
Well, with the people that you have, you need to train them. And then going forward, you need to, select people that can take that approach. So we need to, in the training, I had a huge debate with another consultant last week about this. I don't believe in word-for-word scripting. I think that word-for-word scripting can be very limiting and not let that person flex. Because if we don't teach them how to think and problem solve, and we just teach them how to present this or ask these questions, that they're not going to be able to be a collaborative salesperson.
And is that something can that be taught though, really, for, people are more mature in life as opposed to, kids in school learning critical thinking skills? Do you have success training sales reps to, be able to be more open-minded, think, as you said, be more deliberate?
Yeah, we do. One of my big successes in the last month is a man that's 62 years old. He's a couple years from retirement. And earlier this year, when we were getting started with his company, he let me know very clearly that he was a few years away from retirement and he didn't really think there was anything he needed to do different, et cetera. And I suggested that, there's been other people that think that, and that I gave him an example of someone who told me that, I don't need to be connecting each time with somebody and asking them questions. I show up every month. They know the business we're doing. They give me their order and I'm out of there. And that, another person similar to him years earlier had found, he said, you know what though, I will try this. I will try some things different. And that he 3 weeks later, came to the group weekly group session and just said, I'm totally humbled by what I learned by slowing down and connecting with my ongoing customers more. Mm-hmm. And he had found out that one of his customers' wives had died 15 months earlier, meaning that he saw the guy 15 times since then
and never
had
knew.
No idea.
Right.
And so this other guy this year, his name is Gary. Gary, he heard the story, and then he called me weeks later to tell me that, all right, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give her a shot. This is before we even started. I'm going to give her a shot and see, and he had some very similar results. And he even found out that one of his customers was thinking of moving their location to another state. But when he was so focused on just getting the business done and not doing ongoing collaboration with and consultation with his existing customers, he was in danger of losing business and not even knowing it. So he's 63 years old. So my point is, once they're open, can they learn it? Absolutely. And I think that one of the key ways of doing this is to give people frameworks to operate within and help them make it their own. Because we need to all be looking for how, others' best practices to shorten our learning curve.
Right.
So we need to adopt best practices, but then we have to adapt them and make them ours. Because, Andy, you're a great salesperson, but I couldn't use the exact words you do and come off trustworthy.
Yeah, no, it has to be authentic, right, to yourself, for sure.
Exactly. So I think that by giving people frameworks through what a good sales conversation is and the preparation for it, it allows them to know why certain parts of the conversation need to be a certain way. And then when in a conversation, if based on the response I get from the prospect or buyer, my brain knows 3 or 4 different avenues to go, versus if I'm scripted and they go off script, then I'm not sure maybe the why beneath why I'm doing these things.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because it's really the important thing for people to understand. It's not the first question you ask, it's the question you ask in response to their answer. That's the important question. So,
Very true.
Yeah, so if you're so fixated on being scripted, as you talk about, if you get an answer that's different than the one you expect, you're going to be lost. Exactly. So you have to be present in the moment. You have to be paying attention. You have to listen. And as you said, really be looking at it from a collaborative standpoint. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. My guest today, Nancy Bleeke, and we'll be right back in just a minute. Attention, sales leaders. Would you like to give your sales team the tools to drive more quality connects, scale their outreach, and spend more time selling? Well, you can with LiveHive. Get your ROI. Try it now at livehive.com/ROI. That's LiveHive, LiveHive.com/ROI. Welcome back. My guest today is Nancy Bleeke, author of Conversations That Sell and a Wisconsin Badger. Go Badgers.
Go Badgers.
Go Badgers. So one thing I want to get into is I really like your 4-point investigation. This is really sort of classic gap analysis used for the discovery call. And talk about that a little bit. Because you talked about frameworks. To me, that was a really interesting framework for engaging the customer in terms of identifying what their issues are, what their objectives are, and so on.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a framework for, asking your questions. So it's making sure that we know where they want to go, what's going on today. And then the key is to getting into the emotional aspects that will help make the decision is the risk and reward questions. Finding out what are they concerned, the risks that they foresee if they do something different, and also what are the risks if they don't do it. And I don't think that we explore that enough as salespeople because, I'm sure you've heard, Andy, that our biggest competition is doing nothing.
Yes.
Their status quo.
Yes.
So, getting them to verbalize, what's going to happen if they stay the same. And then also the reward. The reward, I think that those are the questions people think are the duh questions. Like, well, everyone knows what the benefits are going to be, but we can't assume that our buyers have given that much thought. And that the more we can get those rewards down to the most personal level we can, the more we're going to understand the buying triggers and the emotions that are going to move them forward.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So that's what the 4-point is: today and tomorrow, risk and reward, And I laugh, depending on the person, in your conversation, some people will jump right away to what they want to have happen. And other people are really stuck on what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we, by having a framework, we know then once we address one piece of information, what else do we need to learn and ask about and make sure that those 4 points are covered before we start talking about a solution.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that you see with customers and people, they're just humans like everybody else, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that they can set a goal. Look, this is where we want to be in the business 12 months from now or 18 months from now. And this is where we are today, but they don't really have the plan from today to tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And that is the opportunity right there.
Right. And the risk and reward.
And the risk and reward.
And understanding that too, because if the risks in their mind outweigh the reward, we're not going to get them to move. So we have to help that be compelling enough or identify whether it is compelling enough in qualifying them and knowing where to spend our time and energy.
Well, I think helping them identify the risks, because they're going to have an intuitive sort of gut reaction just based on their own set of experiences what the risk is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's as important to help people understand the risks as the value. Because it's to your point, right? They won't make the decision because of their perception of the risks involved. So you have to try to minimize their perception of what the risk is. And part of that is through education. That's part of your sales job. It's not to avoid discussion of the risk. It's actually to be proactive discussing the risks.
Well, and topped off with also then discussing in their viewpoint the potential rewards. So, what are the benefits, not in its education, but it's also discovery and helping them discover the real rewards that they're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
So, people always are stuck on, well, you're going to get an ROI, or you're going to have a savings in this, or you're going to increase this and decrease that. And it's often much deeper than that for certain people. They want to save their job. They want to look good. It's all of those emotional components that really come into play when it's time to make a decision. And if we don't learn those, then we can't help them stack those risks and rewards against each other.
Okay, so here's a loaded question for you. Because I agree with you on the emotional element. And part of when you're, and I think you're involved with the Women Sales Pros organization and so on,
yes,
is, questions. I think Jill Conrath asked the question, you want to sell like a girl? Are women better natural salespeople than men? And I just think that men are less in tune to other people's emotions than women are in general. Mm-hmm. And so is that a case where women are better salespeople than men?
I think it depends on the woman. It depends on the man. I don't like to have broad stereotypes like that because I think it's really individual. I know some men that are way more emotionally tuned in than some women I know. So in generalities, I think different people are more in tune, and that's why a framework like today, tomorrow, risk, reward is so helpful in teaching people because they don't have to think about emotions. They're thinking about risks and rewards, and they can do that in a business environment and not get stuck on, that's too touchy-feely. I'm not going there.
Well, and I sort of asked that question because I think what too many sales reps forget, and it's not, this is not based on gender, it's just sales reps in general, is that they're talking to people.
Thank you. Yes.
and that it's, I've been writing a blog post. I haven't published it yet, but I said, what do you do when your number turns into a person? And people are so fixated on the numbers these days, and it's part of the trend we're seeing in sales is certainly with the growth of inside sales. It's very metrics driven, as it should be, but for some people, I think they take it too far and they lose sight of the fact they're actually selling to a person on the other end.
Yes. Just had this discussion with Ashley Becker from AAISP the other night. We had our first chapter meeting for Wisconsin, and I said to her, sometimes I wonder if this focus on having productive sales conversations is lost to the inside sales worlds that are so now it's about the technology to get this and it's about the metrics and that are we losing the human component that, hey, once all of that technology works and you get someone on the phone, it's a person.
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah, it's still a person that you got to talk to.
Yeah, I mean, at some point in some markets that's changing, but hey, it's I know Gartner Group and others are doing research on what happens when things become customers because of automation, but that's a whole different sales process, and that'll be a different show we can talk about at some point. So
sounds good.
All right, so I've got some rapid fire questions for you that I always wrap up the show with, and I know you're looking forward to these.
Oh yes.
Oh yes, she says. So you can give one word answers, you can elaborate as much as you want, totally up to you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so what's the most powerful sales tool in your arsenal?
Right now, it is the Charlie app. It gives me a briefing every morning on who I have appointments with.
Okay. So is there one tool you use for sales, your own personal sales management, in addition to that you just can't live without?
Infusionsoft.
Okay. And who's your sales role model?
That changes, as you go along in your
Sure.
career. So right now, my sales role model is Trish Bertuzzi of the Bridge Group.
Okay. And why?
Because she is a very disciplined salesperson and she runs a company just like I do, but she is very disciplined in her sales time, and she says nothing gets in the way, and her business has just grown so much these last couple of years because of that discipline.
What's the one book every salesperson should read?
Conversations That Sell.
Of course. In addition to that one.
In addition to that one.
It doesn't even have to be a sales book.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm looking at my bookshelf to make sure I have the name. I think is it just called Drive? I'm going to say everybody should read No More Cold Calling by Joanne Black.
Okay, that's good. I like Joanne's book. And for people that haven't heard of it, that's listening to it, it's really about how you use referrals to build up your base of new prospects as opposed to cold calling. Very important to integrate that.
Yeah, and the process that that she walks you through to do it is so powerful, I think, for understanding the value that you bring, and being able to articulate that and have conviction in it yourself. So I think the process of it is really good.
Yes. Well, I think one of the key things in that process, without digressing too much, is that when you ask for referrals, is you can't assume that people know what it is, A, that you do, and B, what you're asking for a referral for. So you need to be very clear. As you said, articulate that quite clearly for them.
Yes.
So what's your favorite music to listen to when you're psyching yourself up for an important meeting?
I still love the 80s. I actually listen to the Bee Gees.
The Bee Gees, there we go. That's good.
I have them on my iPod or my phone, and I listen to the Bee Gees. It's fast music.
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
Staying alive.
Yes.
What's the first sales activity you do every day?
I plan my day. I look at my Charlie app debriefs.
Okay. Last question. The one thing you get asked most frequently by salespeople is?
It's a lot of how. How do you do this?
Okay, like how do you...
It can be, how do I pick up the phone? I'm thinking of just this week, today, this morning, it was, how do I ask for that decision? They wanted confirmation, and how do I ask? So it's a lot of specific how-tos, how this, how that. That's what I hear most often.
And to the questions I asked, how did they ask for the order? What did you say?
I said it all depends on how the conversation went, and then you need to ask for a specific commitment or decision. So
Right.
You don't say, do you want to buy? You say, are we ready to get this scheduled in their case? And in their case as well, it would be, when do you want delivery?
Right.
It's a different question than do you want to buy?
Right. Yeah, it's an assumptive close.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Very cool. Well, good. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you. I want to thank today's guest, Nancy Bleeke, author of Conversations That Sell, and as a consultant coach. Nancy, tell people how they can learn more about you.
You can visit our website at salesproinsider.com. You can call me, 414-235-3064, or email me at nancy@salesproinsider.com.
Excellent.
Sign up for our newsletter.
Yeah, sign up for a newsletter. And if you missed that, you can listen to it again or come to my website, andypaul.com. We'll have more information on Nancy's show page when this episode is produced.
Thank you
my
for
pleasure.
the conversation, Andy. I appreciate hearing your perspective on consultative and collaborative conversations.
Yeah, it was a good talk. So people who are listening today, remember, make it a part of your day, every day, to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate the growth of your business. Now, subscribing to this podcast is certainly an easy way to do that. You can make sure then you don't miss any of our conversations with sales experts like today's guest, Nancy Bleeke, who share their experience and wisdom about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining, and until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone. Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.